I'm Professor Kenneth Hansen of the University of Central Florida Judaic Studies program, and I'd like to share some exciting new backstories gleaned from the Hebrew Bible with a little help from AI. It's all about a huge rivalry within ancient Israel that most people have never heard of, but that involved warring factions battling each other in the prophecies they put forward. The end result was the dawn of a whole genre of biblical literature focusing on the end of days, which we rightly call apocalyptic. We'll need a lot of textual sleuthing, and we might even have a little help from a couple of famous detectives and an archaeologist adventurer who just might look familiar. Let's face it, the Bible is a lot more than just a religious treatise. Behind the great narratives, from the creation through the Exodus, through the dispersion of the Jewish people and their ultimate return to their own land, there are incredible backstories lurking beneath the surface that the casual eye is likely to miss entirely. This is the work of textual detectives, and it's about the most exciting aspect of modern scholarship. So let's examine the idea that lurking in the shadows of Holy Writ is an unrecognized conflict that tore biblical Israel into two warring factions that colored everything we know about how the Bible we have today evolved over time. And that in turn spawned a class of mystics and seers that we might refer to as the Visionaries. These days, a good scholar needs to be a veritable Sherlock.
The operating theory is that back in ancient times, in the days of Kings David and Solomon, around 1000 BCE, Israelite society became sharply divided between what amounted to an establishment party in control of the Jerusalem temple and a group of subversives and renegades, who we might compare to America's 1960s counterculture. Intent on cultivating deep spirituality, this amorphous group, over several generations gave birth to the Bible's end-time visions and apocalyptic revelations. It's hard to pin down their exact identity, but scholarship refers to them loosely as the Visionaries. To get a sense of who these people were, we have to go back to a fateful decision made by none other than King David. It was he who decided to appoint not one but two high priests to preside over Jerusalem's temple cult. Their names were Zadok and Abiathar. Because Abiathar served David and acted as priest for all of David's men during the dark days when they were in hiding, he was made high priest along with Zadok once David began his reign as king.
ויקרא דוד לצדוק ולאביתר הכהנים וללוויים, ויאמר להם, אתם ראשי האבות ללוויים, התקדשו אתם ואחיכם, והעליתם את ארון השם אלוהי ישראל אל הכינותי לו. And David called for Zadok and Abiathar the priests, and for the Levites, and said to them, You are the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites. Sanctify yourselves, both you and your brethren, that you may bring up the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel, to the place that I have prepared for it. 1 Chronicles 15:11. But trouble arose when King David was on his deathbed, and two rival claimants to his throne arose. The eldest, named Adonijah, had a clear claim to the throne, supported by Abiathar. But Solomon, a younger brother, was preferred to him and was backed by Zadok. So when his father was dying, Adonijah caused himself to be proclaimed king. But the prophet Nathan and David's illustrious wife Bathsheba persuaded the dying king to order that Solomon should immediately be placed on the throne. ויקח צדוק הכהן את קרן השמן מן האוהל, וישמח את שלמה, ויתקעו בשופר, ויאמרו כל העם, יחי המלך שלמה. And Zadok the priest took the horn of oil out of the tent, and anointed Solomon. And they blew the ram's horn, and all the people said, Long live King Solomon! Adonijah fled, taking refuge at the altar, and receiving a pardon for his conduct. But when he later made a second attempt to gain the throne, he was seized and put to death. That leaves the problem of Adonijah's chief supporter, Zadok's co-high priest Abiathar. Solomon wants to consolidate power, and the last thing he needs are two rival high priests. He's not prepared to execute Abiathar, but he is prepared to send him into exile, which he does. Abiathar is sent to a town further to the north from Jerusalem called Anathoth. It's a name worth remembering because one day, centuries later, a powerful prophet will hail from Anathoth, from the priestly line of Abiathar. He will be called Jeremiah. Greetings from the world's greatest detective, who you just might recognize from my favorite novelist. You can call me HP for short. Anathoth was a city in the tribe of Benjamin, originally designated as one of the Levitical cities given to the children of Aaron. It may seem like a small point, but for textual detectives it underscores a fundamental tension between two ancient priestly lines. One claimed to have descended from Moses himself. For want of a better designation, we may call them Mushites. The other claimed its priestly credentials from Moses' brother Aaron. We can call them Aaronids. Their priestly lineage was actually weaker than that of the Mushites, but never mind. With Zadok now ensconced as high priest, the purity of pedigree hardly mattered, and the rival Mushites needed to be dealt with. Abiathar had descended from an old priestly line from the northern city of Shiloh, but now he must have felt a good deal of hostility from the Aaronid population of Anathoth. All of this sets up a brewing internal tension among the Israelites that's completely overlooked by modern readers of the text. After all, history is written by the victors, and we have to look beneath party line narratives to figure out what's really going on, which begs the question of who exactly is doing the writing, who indeed wrote the Bible. That might be a case for Sherlock.
Everything is of course conjecture, but a well-accepted operating theory is that early on in the Israelite monarchy, around 950 BCE, perhaps during the reign of Solomon's son, Rehoboam, an anonymous author, not a Levite, but allied to the Aaronid priesthood, began compiling a kind of court history of early Israel. It has even been deduced that its author was a woman, not a professional scribe, but a member of the Solomonic elite class, who wrote in a manner sympathetic to women, and in competition with the male author of the official court history, now found in the book of 2 Samuel. Only a fragmentary text of that work has come down to us, embedded within the biblical books of Genesis, Exodus, and Numbers.
It is detective work indeed, for this fragmentary biblical text emphasizes David's royal house and the tribe of Judah, to which he belonged. It emphasizes the patriarch Abraham, living in Hebron, in the territory of Judah. It claims that the Levites were dispersed as punishment for massacring the people of Shechem. It frequently mentions Mount Sinai, as opposed to its other name, Horeb, and it also references anthropomorphic appearances of Israel's deity, incarnating, as it were, in human flesh. When Moses sends spies ahead to report back on the land of Canaan, as reported in Numbers 13, they only see the territory of Judah and no land belonging to the other tribes. It emphasizes the Ark of the Covenant, which came to reside in the permanent Temple of Jerusalem, as opposed to the tabernacle, which was portable and could travel from place to place. As later editors continued this work throughout the history of the monarchy of Judah, it emphasized that good King Hezekiah smashed the famous bronze serpent of Moses, since people were idolizing it. The theory is that it's all part of an ongoing polemic against the priestly descendants of Moses, the Mushites. Scholars refer to this presumed text as the J or Yahwist source, since it regularly refers to God by the four-letter Hebrew divine name J or YHWH. But there was another unknown author, a Levite priest from Shiloh, who produced his own account of Israel's early history. Shiloh was a northern city, as opposed to Jerusalem, located in Judah to the south. This is all the more significant since, during the days of Rehoboam, Solomon's son, the kingdom split in two, with the tribes of Judah and Benjamin remaining in the south, while the 10 northern tribes broke away. The text composed by this Shiloh priest, likely around 800 BCE, reflects the reality that the Mushites, ever since the expulsion of Abiathar, were part of the northern kingdom that had no access to the holy house in Jerusalem. Among its literary characteristics, it is shy about the use of anthropomorphism, preferring to depict God in dreams or visions. The holy mountain is called Horeb, not Sinai. He depicts the Israelites buying Shechem, a city in the north where Joseph would be buried, rather than being dispersed for slaughtering its inhabitants. When Moses' people turn to idolatry and worship a golden calf, this narrative indicts Aaron, from whom the Aaronides descend. Aaron and Moses' sister Miriam speak against the great lawgiver and are reprimanded. In this text, the portable tabernacle is emphasized, while the sacred ark is never mentioned. It is Moses, the hero, who is depicted, with his bronze serpent, and to Moses the divine four-letter name is revealed for the first time. Yet this anonymous author prefers on almost every occasion to refer to God not by those four letters YHWH, the so-called tetragrammaton, but by a name for God used commonly by the Canaanites, Elohim. We can therefore call this writer the Elohist, as opposed to the Judean Yahwist.
Where does that leave us? With two opposing authors and two opposing agendas, representing two opposing camps, the possibly female Yahwist, allied with the Aaronid priestly hierarchy in the southern kingdom of Judah, and a Mushite writer in the north, likely a member of the exiled house of Abiathar. It will take a subsequent editor to sandwich these two conflicting accounts together, which came down to us today as the Hebrew Bible. But the conflict between the hierocratic Zadokites in control of the Jerusalem temple and the disenfranchised Levites of the Mushite Abiathar lineage will grind on, the latter morphing into a group known for cultivating a special kind of spirituality focused on the end of days, a genre known by scholars as eschatology. We don't have a common name for them, so scholars and textual sleuths came up with a fresh one. We can call them the Visionaries, and their story is about to heat up.